Hey, podcast listeners, it's Ria Wong with you once again with Nonprofit Lowdown. Today is a repeat guest, my friend Greg Warner, CEO and founder of Marketsmart, and we got a lot to talk about. We are going to talk about why major donor processes suck and what to do about it instead. So, Greg, welcome to the show again.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Wow. Not many people invite me back twice.
I, you know, call me a glutton for punishment. Just kidding. All right, before we jump into this, can you give us a quick and dirty overview of your history in fundraising, which is actually quite non-traditional, which I think is a really interesting path?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'm really a donor first. Um, I was running a marketing agency, and the more successful it became, the more I began to give money away. And I found that I actually liked it, but sort of the afterglow of that experience was not as good as the giving experience. So I offered to help one of my favorite charities that kept pelting me with a lot of junk mail and selling my name to their competitors and stuff. And and we devised a system, if you will, for helping them um, inspire the wealthiest and most passionate donors to lean in and self-qualify, which was totally different than what the sector usually does still, which is a lot of targeting and prospect identification, not enough qualification. So anyway, this system worked really, really well, and we got referred to another similar cause from that original cause, and then I decided to just kind of killed the old business and turned it into a software and service business that only helps charities. So now let's see, 12 years, 13 years later, we're still kicking it. We've got hundreds of customers. System works, and mostly because it's very donor centric. But what we'll probably be talking about next is the aspect that needs to be fundraiser centric. So hope that makes sense, and that's a short enough life story for you.
Yeah, so let's dig into this. I want to talk about self cultivation and self solicitation because I think in the traditional ways that fundraisers are taught, it's like you identify them and then you have to like do stuff to them in order to get them to a point where they're going to give a gift. And you and I spoke about this because that's just not the way that people operate it, particularly now. I mean, when I think about my own consumer behavior, I don't want to talk to anybody. Like, if I talk to anybody, it's at a point that I've already done my research and I've decided perhaps that I might have some questions before I buy. So, talk to me a little bit about, is this reflected in the way that you've seen donors interact?
Yeah, without a doubt. So let's take out the fact that people are donors or buyers or anything like that. And let's just get into some behavioral science and some research, which I'll share with you. Um, and this goes back to, by the way, I learned this at the ripe old age of 22, I think it was, because I made it through college, but I didn't love the learning aspect of college. I failed out of business school because they told me I wasn't going to be good at business, clearly, so shows what they know. But um, when I meandered my way through two other majors and I graduated, I was pretty lost, and I realized that I should just get into sales. I thought I could be good at sales, and I'd been doing it since I was a kid. Anyway, my dad gave me a book. It's got the worst name. I didn't even want to read it because I thought it sounded terrible. It's called Spin Selling. And this book was written by a guy named Neil Rackham. And he studied 35,000 sales interactions to determine what the hell makes the top 10% of salespeople outperform all the others exponentially. and he figured it out. And I'm so glad I read that book so early in my career. And I'm just telling you, and you don't have to read the whole book. And if anybody ever wants a synopsis of it, just ask me or Google a synopsis of it, because it's very heady with a lot of research. It's hard to understand. You have to read it 2 or 3 times to get it. But what he really found is that salespeople are not manipulators or influencers. The best salespeople, and this translates into fundraising, are the ones that take a particular interest in the individual whom they're working with, and they ask questions much like a psychologist or a doctor or a lawyer, CPA, to help people come to conclusions that are right for them. Now, Dr. Russell James, if anybody on here knows of him, and he's an amazing researcher for this sector, he calls it Socratic fundraising. So in a long-winded way, I'm trying to answer your question and telling you that the behavioral science is clear and sound in that it's questions that generate results. It's not presentations, persuasions, manipulations, or the short way that I love to invent terms for the sector, but I call them drive-by solicitations or ambush asks, which is what most administrators, sadly, I have found drive too many staff to do. And that kind of behavior is driving people away. And I know there's a lot of talk about donor advised funds and family foundations, and we even want to change laws in relation to that. But, if you keep taking a hammer and hammering your donors in the face with drive-by solicitations and ambush asks, and I know that's the New Jersey in me coming out. I'm very visceral in my beliefs of this. But if you keep taking a hammer and whacking them with these kinds of behaviors, the only people who are going to be happy about in this world are the administrators, but they'll be out of a job eventually because the revenue won't be coming in. And what the donors do, rightfully so, is they find a better value proposition in giving money to family foundations and donor advised funds. They can maintain their anonymity, they can enjoy, and this is the afterglow I was talking about that I was unhappy with. Well, this is happening in massive quantities, and people are seeing the revenue and they're upset about it, but they're blaming the donors and the banks, which is the dumbest thing you can do, because it's not their fault. If you provide a better value proposition and a donor experience that's worth $1 million, the donor will not be able to help themselves but to trip over themselves to give the money to your cause and cry tears of joy for having been given the opportunity to do it with you.
Can I go back? There's so much to unpack here, but a lot to unpack, but I just want to go back to this idea of questions being the way into the relationship, into the conversation. And I, as fundraisers, we're taught to listen for the get right, listen for the, but the problem is that we're also not taught how to listen. And so I talk about this a lot, that there are really 3 levels of listening. The first level of listening, which unfortunately is how a lot of us operate, is listening with an agenda. I'm listening to hear what I want to hear to manipulate the situation. Second level of listening is listening with no agenda, really letting what's here breathe. And the third level is listening for what's not being said. That's when you're listening for tones. It's when you're listening for body language. I'm in California, so you're sensing the energy. And I I don't know what the question here is, other than I think when we put the stories and the needs of the donor ahead of our own agenda, is that when we see the transformation?
I'm taking a deep breath because, and please don't take this the wrong way, or you can. I don't give a shit. All that gets in the way of humanity. We need to ask questions because we're human, and that we recognize that the other person we're talking to is a human being. So you have to have a degree of you have to have a desire to understand the humanity of that individual, and especially their original identity in their life story. So let me say it like this. And I've done a lot of work personally on what is the meaning of life, or how do you determine the meaning of life, right? And I'm going to get very philosophical here, but the reason is very important because the biggest gifts, the most consequential decisions for givers, and the most transformative donations to any organization happen not for any transactional or reciprocal reason, but because someone is trying to find meaning in their life. Okay, that's heavy. So if you're going to be involved in helping someone with wealth find meaning in their life, you have to understand that one of the big components of finding meaning in life is that everybody wants to tell themselves the hero story. We all walk around wanting to tell ourselves that I'm a good father, I'm a good friend, I'm a good son, I'm a good CEO. That's our calibrator. There's other components to finding meaning in life, like belonging and spirituality and having a sense of purpose. But the hero narrative is very, very, very important when it comes to this giving decision, and I'm for the donor. So if that's so important that they can only find meaning in life through giving, or that's a component of how they're going to find meaning in their life, then the next question is, well, who's going to help them do that? Okay, because wealthy people don't sit around thinking about how to give away their money so they find meaning in life all the time. But as I just kind of explained, that's what's going on. They have this deep desire in their humanity to live on in the minds of others, or to even if they're giving anonymously, they know I'm a good person. That's my hero narrative. I don't have to tell anybody but myself, and I feel like I have meaning in my life because I know this. So what that means is that if that's the case, and we know that, and that's why we see philanthropists giving away all the money that they earned all over their life, and all the trials and everything, the blood, sweat, and tears they went through to acquire that. And I know, because I'm a CEO entrepreneur who's still putting my house on the line to keep this company growing, because I don't want to take private equity money. I don't like that stuff. Anyway, we bleed to most wealthy people are first generation wealthy. They are not dynastic like they're made out to look like, and they're not evil like they're made out to be in the movies, and Disney movies especially make, the rich person is always evil. No, they're not evil. They're trying to find meaning in their life after they've accomplished so much and acquired so much, and they want to actually give it away, and then they'll cry tears of joy doing it. And we've all seen that. But what they need, so I'm finally answering your question, is a guide. They need a guide, a mentor. They need what they need from a family office. They get it. They get a wealth manager, right? They need a doctor every once in a while when they're getting old and they, arthritis or whatever. They need a CPA, right? And all of these people guide them, and they take the position as their guide with confidence, saying, I do this all the time. You don't. You're good at acquiring wealth. I'm good at helping people give it away. Fundraisers need to be treated with exponentially more respect and better training to help them understand their role in the life narrative of amazingly, potentially philanthropic, successful, high capacity people. And if we treat ourselves and we treat our staff, we treat fundraisers, even the young ones who are learning, letting them know that no, this isn't about extracting wealth from people. This isn't about manipulating, targeting, prospect identifying, and I mean, I'm so offended by that and the way that we research these people to try and determine their wealth. It makes me nauseous.
Well, and not only that, like, let's be real. If you're a person of real actual wealth, there are plenty of ways to hide your wealth. So, I mean, that's not, I mean, but to your point, it's creepy. If you have a conversation with someone and you somehow Google stalk them in their whole lives and they know the name of their dogs, it's like, okay, calm down, stalker. Like,
Can you imagine on a first visit, you drop your folder and a whole bunch of prospect research falls out in their
gross,
living room that
gross.
says target ask them for $50,000. It's like, ugh. I mean, if you wouldn't be comfortable with that falling out of your folder in front of your donor, then it's not right to have it. I believe that you should, and look, this gets a little biased because, of course, my system does this with AI and automation. So just, I recognize that's selfish, but if you want to know about the donor and their capacity, just ask them.
So let's go there because there are two things I really want to talk about. The first thing is how you identify people who are ready to talk to you. So the strategy, which is not really a strategy that a lot of fundraisers employ, is kind of what I call a spray and pray, right? Like you send these emails, you hope somebody is willing to meet with you. It's not necessarily that you even have any kind of connection. You hope that they're in a place where they might want to give to you. So what's the strategy that you have to actually identify people who actually want to talk to you?
Yeah, so let's first break down the old, because I had to research this because I was told by my customers early on when I started developing. I was just a dumb donor. I'm just a dumb donor when I started this. I was like, oh, I don't understand. Why do I feel so bad after I'm engaging with my favorite charity? I don't get it. And they told me, well, you don't understand fundraising. Get some books. I got some books and I was like, okay, I still don't freaking understand it. I still don't understand it. This doesn't sound nice. So you're going to identify, and they're all the same. You're going to identify people, and then you're going to, what's the next step? Maybe cultivate,
You
like
qualify, then you
fertilizer,
cultivate. Right.
and then you're going to solicit them.
Right.
And then you're going to, so it's like, this is all the stuff you're going to do to them. So that's the wrong way, by the way, of going about any marketing or direct sales approach, because it's all about you and what you're going to do and what your boss wants. And of course, they want the activity metrics because they don't friggin' understand what the hell's going on. They just want to know that you're out there doing something.
Oh my gosh, I know. How many times have I been asked, like, well, what are the metrics? Like number of phone calls made, number of emails sent. I'm like, what does that tell you other than I'm doing busy work? Anyway, that's a side note.
Right.
Put a
Well,
pin, put a pin in that
look,
one.
if you look at the best business books and the way we were run, we look at outcomes. Outcomes are meaningful. Anyway, so if you unpack that, and I've been talking to you about this new operating system I'm developing because I call that DOS. And for those of us who are old enough to remember DOS, and I had a dot matrix printer, and your file you would crash,
Yeah,
and
that's what I used to play Oregon Trail on.
yeah. So look, man, we're in OS, we're in a Mac world, and the operating system is still operating on DOS at most organizations, and we need OS, which I'm calling the engagement fundraising operating system, at least for now. We'll see, because it's been working on it 2 years, but I'm finally bringing it out to people. But this operating system says, like, okay, you got to pay attention to what we do as fundraisers. Sure, I get it. But first, the metrics are all wrong. So I kind of rewrote those. But you have to understand, where is the donor or prospective donor in the consideration continuum? Then your actions should be in line with where they are, right? So getting back to your question then about how do you get people to self-qualify? Well, first, you don't decide we want people to qualify. That's not it. You have to say to yourself, okay, where are they in the consideration continuum? Either they know about us, they've donated before, they've attended an event or something. Maybe they're just liking us on Facebook. So then the next step is, well, what's the easiest, lowest cost, lowest kind of friction way to help people lean in? Now, private sector's figured this out. It's content, right? Provide content that people would be interested in seeing. Now, it could be that that content is fairly direct. I'm going through a marketing exercise with you. Like, you really want to sharpen your pencil, you might do content like on end of year best practices for giving smartly. You know, one of our board members is expert in this, and you can attend the event. That'll probably only attract wealthy people, and you probably should only invite wealthy people to that. But even that, it's too much about giving, right? So let me go back and say, what you really want is you've got to devise an offer that helps people lean in to engage with you in a way that aligns with where they are. Where they are in most cases is they're thinking that, or they're not even sure about their original identity. In other words, their why. Why do I care? Most of them have to think for a minute and remember, well, gosh, at the hospital, there was a nurse who sat bedside with my father when I couldn't be there for days and hours. That's the reason why I forgot about that, but that's why I give there. You know, everybody has an original identity or a beginning point in their life story where the cause began to intertwine with their life. So the beginning point is here. The end point that we want is that they find meaning in life, meaning purpose, belonging, spirituality, and why did I forget? It was the first one I mentioned. Anyway, but we want to get to that end point. But you can't just jump in bed and get married with these people. You have to figure out their original identity first. So what we recommend as the best way, not the webinar might work a little bit, but the best way is really through a survey. And when I first started doing that, sadly, all these companies they saw that we were getting traction at my company doing this. And then they decided, well, this is a neat tool. We'll sell more printing with it or something, or services. And then internally at nonprofits, they were like, wow, this is a great research project. No, it's not a friggin' research project. It's an opportunity to engage amazing people to find out where did the entwinement of their life story and your cause intersect. It's not research, it's engagement. And it gives these amazing people an opportunity to lean in sort of at arm's length, because they love your brand and they love your mission, but they don't know you. So they don't want to talk to you yet. Because they're at that stage, we have to give them a very non-abrasive, helpful, value-oriented offer, which is a survey. And you got to do it right. There's a lot of ways to do it wrong. And by the way, I've given it all away for free. It's on my website, you know, how to do it right.
We'll make
Um,
sure to link to all of that information in the show notes. But um,
yeah,
I love that we're going to talk about surveys. I love that you highlighted that this is not like a you send it out to your whole email list, right? You're very selective about who you're sending it to, and you do it, you drip it so that you're able to actually
slow.
interact with the responses that you get, right? Because as a donor, if I spend the time to fill this thing out, I want to know that someone's reading it, right?
Yeah, well, more than that, you are taking it because you care about the organization and you want a deeper relationship with it, but you don't want to go on a date or get married yet. Right? So again, this is where the most donors reside in the consideration continuum, is they have this innate. Now, don't mistake this with private sector surveys. That's totally different. You have to understand that the brain, when thinking about a cause, the area of the brain that lights up because it's working is the part of the brain that's associated with family and love. Right? People think of charities as family members in an interesting way. So people are exponentially more likely to respond to a survey from a cause that they care about. And in fact, that begins the first step of self-qualification, because they're leaning in, they're deciding the time is right, not to give, but to at least engage. And look at this, I've been invited to a party. Everybody loves being invited, even if they don't respond. They care about what I think. Now, the problem that I saw in the sector that happened starting 10 years ago is all the vendors and the internal communication staff, they didn't actually give a crap what the donors said or thought. They either wanted to sell printing or marketing, or the communications department wanted to be able to turn it into a chart and make some kind of marketing decisions about how often to send emails. Well, you can't get that from a survey. Like, everybody's going to say they don't want you. It's an engagement device that you should roll out slowly. Think of it as a first discovery visit that's not a real visit. And people who take it expect you to do something with that information that improves the value proposition they're seeking from your cause and a deeper relationship. But what sadly happens, and I know I'll shut up in just a second, is that if you don't follow up with people and show them that their time was well spent, you cared about them, and you're considering, at least considering what they said, then you actually, and we've seen this in the data, because we looked at data, is your donation revenue will go down. Now
So,
you just lost the
y-
trust of somebody.
yeah, and I want to underscore that so strongly for everybody, which is that the point of your communications is about trust. It's about adding value and affirming trust with your people. So let's fast forward. Let's say I take this survey, I indicate that I might be interested in talking to someone on your staff about a gift. We have the discovery conversation where I think, and this is really interesting and innovative, is the invitation. So, can you talk to us about the invitation? Because I feel it's so commonsensical and yet no one does it. And I think it could be a game changer. What's the invitation?
Okay, so let me make sure to connect some dots. You skipped quickly, and I just want to make sure everybody's with us. In this new operating system, I want to help you understand first that there's three shapes. There's three simple things that we have to do, and I devised them as shapes. One is a pentagon, and the pentagon is for pre-qualification, not prospect identification and cultivate. No, pre-qualification. Different word, I know. The sector will be like, ugh. But people should not be reached out to unless they say that the timing is right for them to talk to you, They have a deep personal life story reason why they care. They're somewhat engaged, like even like taking the survey is showing engagement, and they've given you permission to reach out to them. And of course, underlining all that, that's four. The fifth part of the Pentagon is that they have capacity. So how do you know that? Because the wealth screening you already established can be wrong. They could be cash poor. They could be house poor. They could be have a business that's going bankrupt. We don't know. But the way we determine it in a survey is we ask them questions about their likelihood and interest in giving away assets to support the cause. People who have capacity understand what it means to give away assets, because like 3% of their wealth is in cash. So, okay, so now you got someone who's pre-qualified. They said that the timing's right for them to engage in this way. They have a deep reason, and they may even tell the story in the survey. They're engaged. They gave you permission. They say they're likely to talk to you if you reach out to them. And they said that they're interested or considering giving their house and 5 other properties to the cause, especially because they don't have any children and they're getting older, right? You can get all that from a survey. So that's the Pentagon. You got pre-qualification, ding. Okay, now I know who I need to reach out to. Then you reach out to them, and that's the second step, is for complete qualification. We had pre-qualification, now we have complete qualification. That can only be done by an expert, which are the people on this call. Complete qualification cannot be done by a survey or AI or anything. It comes from meeting with people, even if it's on a Zoom call. You make outreach, you conduct donor discovery. What's that? I won't get into all that because you want to get to the invitation, but that's all about the life story of this individual and how they're seeking potentially to find meaning in their life through a deeper sense of belonging, commitment, and helping others. That's what philanthropy is. It's love. So how do they want to spread their love with the power and the money, the wealth that they have? That's what discovery is. Okay, now you asked about the invitation. So that's number 3 step in the second shape. Pentagon, this is a square. The third one, by the way, is a triangle, which I won't even get into, but that's all about, let's call it the updated, modernized way to do moves management, since I hate that friggin' term, and you don't move people, you don't manipulate people, there goes the dog. You help people and you support them and you guide them, you counsel them, you advise them. But let's to the fourth one. So you got outreach, you conduct discovery, you get to the invitation. And the invitation is this. And the challenge in the field, by the way, is that doctors, lawyers, CPAs, all these kinds of advisors, they have it easy because everybody has been brought up knowing that if I go to a CPA, they're going to ask me how much I make. And I'm going to tell them. And if I go to a doctor's office, they're going to tell me to take off my freaking clothes. And I'm gonna do it. What the hell? Like, we trust these people. We're told to trust them, and we do that stuff. We tell them what they want to know. We let them probe our ears, but fundraisers, they don't have that. Right? In fact, people are a little fearful. The trust needs to be built, and that happens in discovery. But when the time is right, and it might be even at the end of the first discovery call, you've got to take the position of the guide and sage, and you have to offer an invitation. So there's 10 components of an invitation. It's really like a statement of work or an upfront contract. So if anyone understands and goes back to spin selling, and if they read that book, or you get into any other sales trainers, master sales trainers, you have to understand the power of an upfront contract. Every expert salesperson, and it should be every expert fundraiser, recognizes the power of the upfront contract to set the stage. this is who I am. And you're not going to say it as mean as I'm saying it, because it's just, I'm from New Jersey and that's the way I say things. But you are an experienced, caring, loving advisor, and you do this every day, all year long, for amazing people just like them. You have to establish that. That's who I am. There's 10 components, by the way, so I'll move it faster to the invitation. But first is who you are, right? Like, and you have a CFRE designation or this or that, or you've been doing this for 15 years and you've helped these kinds of people. And what does that mean? Number two is, what do I do for people? And by the way, if you don't have to write all these notes down, because I'll just send you this if you want. I don't know if anyone's writing them down. I don't mean to tell you what to do, but anyway, I know
Don't be
people.
bossy, Greg. But you know what?
Yeah.
I'll make sure to put your info in the chat and in the podcast notes if people want to get in touch with you, because this is some gold here. All right. So
All right.
who I am, how I help people like you. What
Yep.
else?
Perhaps, and you don't need to use all 10, but 7 or 8 will do, is perhaps explain to them in transparency, when do people bring them into the fold? It's like you don't bring a criminal defense attorney into your life unless you got something going down. You know, you bring a CPA in at certain times. Maybe you've been doing it for yourself, and here's when you do it. Or maybe you bring in a forensic accountant because you got problems in your business. You know, you got to explain to them, because they don't know. When do people like them bring people like you into the fold and welcome you? Next, that's 3. Number 4 is how the process works, right? And most of us haven't sketched it out, but we should. For transparency's sake, doodle it. Say, this is how it works. First, I meet with you and we do, and I really learn how your life story entwines with our mission in this, and I try to uncover all that. And then I invite you into a process. If you accept, here's how the process goes, right? Let them see that, because most donors don't know. And instead, they're like, are we going to lunch? Are we getting to know each other? Are you going to ask me for money? I don't know. And that's why they recoil, because they've had bad experiences. They don't know what's the game. Show them the game. This is what most donors do. This is the process we go through. Number 5, and not in any particular order, but is that you have to express to them that you can only work with about 40 to 45 people. This number of 150 is complete bullshit for a caseload, because it comes from some findings that occurred in behavioral science and research, and also in research about how humans began to perform properly together. I think I read it in Sapiens. If anybody read that book, it's like 1,200 pages long.
Yeah,
But
it was Sapiens, and then I think also Tipping Point might have used that 150 number.
they use the 150 for, that's the total number that humans can really, really keep in mind as have relationships with, some deeper than others, right? So then we said, well, a caseload should be 150. I didn't say it. I mean, somebody said it somewhere along the lines. Well, that doesn't work, because you have your family and your friends. So if you're going to incorporate, it's really, the research from real serious professionals in the field has found it's about 40 to 45 people is all you can handle. And if you're an executive director and you got other duties, it's maybe 10, right? But you have to explain to the prospective donor, I work like an accountant or lawyer. I can have a caseload of about 40 people who I'm going to take on this journey and help guide. And by the way, my salary is paid. Let them know my salary is paid from the past donations made by amazing people like you who I took on this journey. But to do the process right, I really need to stay focused on working with about 40 to 45 people. So If you, for any reason throughout and by the way, my process, it takes about 24 months. Some people it's 12 months, some people it's 18, some people a little longer. But if you think for any reason that we won't be able to get this done and you make a decision within 24 months, I hope you'll kindly opt out or pause or unsubscribe, whatever. Let me know, because if I'm continually trying to work with you and you're not letting me know it's over, that takes time away from other donors that I could be helping, and that costs this organization dearly. So please be kind to us and the other donors, and just let me know. It's okay. I'm big boy. I can take it. I'll add some other bullet point. That's a very important point, though, which is why you might also want to add, why do people trust you? Like, how about a couple testimonials from past donors and the value they got from working with you in this process? That'd be helpful to leave behind in the packet. And by the way, I have templates for this. So you can create your own invitation kind of packet, and you go through it with the donor. You just kind of go through it. Don't turn it into a fancy brochure. Just go through it with them and say, this is how I work. In case you're wondering, if you were wondering how I work, I'll tell you how I work. This is how I work.
So,
And yeah. So I'm
quick
halfway through. I'm on 6, I think.
yeah, you're on 6. We can go through the rest of it, but the
Yeah.
question that is coming up for me is, we recently had my friend Adam Michael on the call. He does West Coast fundraising with, very serious, usually tech folks. And he said that he's been landing gifts in like over text message in less than a month. And so I'm just wondering, how does that interface with your
Yeah.
invitation?
Well, these are the others that you're cultivating and you're building relationships, because these are not the transformational gifts for both your organization and the donor. I mean, I get it. Like, so for someone who's worth $50 million, $50,000 committed over text message is like me giving $10 to somebody, you know? So you have to understand and it makes them feel good and all that. It's a different tier, though. It's a different tier. And you can have those. They're sort of buzzing around. But at some point, I would recommend that see, in other words, what I'm trying to say is, and I don't know this guy, Michael. I don't know, and I haven't done his job. Right. And I don't have that where people are just texting me saying they want to buy our services. You know, he's fortunate. But if you want the most consequential gift, serious giving has to be done through a process where you establish who you are, you build that trust, and you have the upfront contract so that the individual understands where they're going with you and they work with you on this. In other words, what I'm trying to say is, I think he's leaving massive money on the table.
Right.
With every one of those that he gets, he needs to get to a point where he sits down with some of them and offers the invitation, so that he's not getting 5, 10, $50,000, but he's getting 5 million.
Right.
The
Right.
only way
So,
you can do that is after an invitation, a proper invitation.
yeah, I guess what I'm wondering with that, and this is probably another conversation for another time, is are we seeing different donor behaviors in younger generations?
Well, yes, because younger people, and I can speak for this from experience, because when I started on this whole journey, I was 38 and I was giving like you just described. And I thought I was a big major donor, right? 5,000 here, a few thousand there. And then I get into it, I'm like, oh my God, I'm not a major donor, right? And also, I can tell you that when I was 38, I didn't think about the meaning of life, but nothing. I was trying to pick up my kids at school and being the coach for soccer practice. My mom was sick. I'm taking care of her. I was getting sued by my stepmother. I mean, all kinds of stuff. I didn't have time to figure out the meaning of life. I'm 53 now. Let me tell you something. I got friends who are sick. I got one who sadly died young. I mean, I'm starting to think about the meaning of freaking life. So yeah, for younger donors, tech donors, crypto donors, they're not going to be thinking about that.
Right. So
You might,
there's
yeah.
a sweet spot of like when people start to get self-reflective about my legacy and what do I leave behind.
Generally happens in the 50s.
All right, Greg, we are out of time, unfortunately. We could have gone so much deeper into all of this, but uh, I will put your information in the chat if folks want to get in touch with you. Where can people get in touch with you? Is LinkedIn, email? Like, how do people want?
Yeah.
How do people get more of what you're selling here?
Well, LinkedIn, and by the way, this operating system that I've been working on for the past 2 years, I'm testing it out with some customers, friends, and such. It's really working because it's just really working. I'm going to give it away to the sector for free. I mean, it's not going to be one of those things where I'm trying to turn this into a big consulting practice and all that. I just want people to think differently and try and do stuff a little different. Um, you can get in touch with me on LinkedIn. That's where most people do. Greg Warner. Twitter. I guess I'm on there now, sort of. I think LinkedIn just posts stuff automatically. Don't reach out to me on Twitter, LinkedIn, or email me. Email me at probably best way is at info at iMarketsmart. Info at iMarketsmart.
You're
Yeah.
the info guy. I
I'm
always
really
try to
not, but they'll send it to me,
get to you. Okay, good. Because I
and
was
then we'll
like,
become friends, and then I'll white label, make it so that you can email me directly, and I'll give you this list of 10 because we got to like 6, and I'll give you some templates that people can use if they want to create their own little invitation so they can walk people through it. Um, yeah, and I don't know, do we have time for questions or we're done?
no, I think we got to wrap up because I got to go teach a class of 5 kids in about 10 minutes. But if you send me the stuff, I'll put it in the show notes to make sure that folks can download it. But Greg, thank you so much. This, as always, value packed, lots of value bombs in here, and I hope people start to think differently about major donor fundraising.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's nice to see all your faces there too. You all look like lovely people, and I think you fundraisers really deserve a better life, and that's what I'm trying to create.
Yes, preach that. Fundraisers get beat up all of the time, and they're getting it from both ends. So, um, we're professionals. We should be treated as such. So, amen. Thanks so much, Greg. Thanks to everyone. Have a great week.